Okay, we're live. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of you. Welcome to the block. This is by ICORBP, or International Council of Registered Blockchain Professionals. Now, what is ICORBP? ICORBP is the continuing technical education of Althash Education, which aims to develop relevant skills, apply best practices, maintain quality and standards, and enhance the vital competencies. And we do certifications for blockchain. And what does this get you? It will formalize your blockchain credentials and at the same time establish your credibility as a blockchain professional. Now, this episode, we do have a special guest, one of the faculties of Althash University, and at the same time, she is a lawyer. She's going to correct me if I am wrong. I hope not. And this needs further introduction. But before that, let's go to our sponsors.
This blockchain continuing education program is brought to you by our major sponsors: HTML Coin, Utility Coin Beyond the Hype; Althash University, your online school in the fourth industrial revolution; Libra Codes, take control on your NFT creation; and Credence Hub, verified credentials, anytime, anywhere. We also would like to thank our partners.
Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome our guest for today, Miss Desiree van Iersel. Did I pronounce it right, Desiree?
Yes, Vince, you definitely did.
Oh,
Um,
be,
I'm
be-
very pleased to be here.
oh, thank you. Let me say this first. Go after midday. Did I said it right?
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. I'm so thankful for you saying that in my own language. Um,
Great. Now, before anything else, let us start about maybe you could talk about yourself, your background, and what you do.
of course, of course. Well, my background, as you sort of already spoiled for me, is in law. I I obtained a Bachelor's of Arts at the University College in the Netherlands. Afterwards, I decided to pursue my interest in the law, which when I started out studying, I could not have imagined I had because it sounded to me incredibly boring studies.
Hmm.
Um, but I did find there that the law actually impacts everything, impacts society, it impacts technology, which is actually also the focus I took while furthering my legal studies, where I entered into a master's program focused on the regulation and focus on technology and how law and technology actually clash together, but also how they can help each other further. Which is actually also what I'm currently doing in my job as a legal counsel. I
Mhm.
work at a research institute here in the Netherlands, where I mostly focused on projects relating to IT matters. So everything from the internet to blockchain to everything that still sounds kind of scientific
Mhm.
sci-fi to me, which I think is incredible. And I'm basically the one behind the screens facilitating all the contracting and all the IP registration.
Right. Now, how should I address you? Attorney, uh,
Just,
barrister?
just my first name would do. I'm not
Okay,
very fond of titles, so please stick with my first name that I'd love.
that would be perfect. That's a reason. Now, let's go to our main topic for this evening. Not the regulations, but rather, we're going to talk about your blockchain journey. So, how did you start your blockchain journey?
Well, I actually must say I still think I'm very much on my blockchain journey. I started out a few years ago, actually, when I was reading in the newspaper all this stuff about the Bitcoin course going up and down and up and down.
Hmm.
And I remember thinking that I had no clue what all these concepts meant and actually how I should encapsulate and properly understand what Bitcoin actually was, what blockchain actually was. And I had that feeling over the course of a few months' time because every single day I'd read an article on the topic
Hmm.
and I'd find out that I didn't really know much about it. And it's one of my personality traits to not really like not knowing anything about a specific topic. So what I do, of course, is go and research it. especially something for basically my generation is when I don't know anything, I'm going to Google it, which is what I did whenever I came across a term in one of those newspaper articles to figure out what it actually meant. And I actually hoped that it somehow would stick into the recesses of my brain, but it never actually got there.
Mhm.
So every single time I tried to understand, and I didn't come much further than the day before. So I decided, because I was annoyed, to take up a blockchain course at my university, which is quite nearby my hometown. So I figured I would do a course and try to find one that sort of combines my focus on the law plus blockchain, which I did. I found a wonderful course at Utrecht University where they actually introduced me to blockchain plus IP law, also blockchain plus competition law, and just
Mm.
basically laid out the foundation of the blockchain sphere and actually cleared up all these, for me, fuzzy terms. And that sort of got me thinking that I really enjoyed looking into this new technology. And that's basically how I started, just as somebody who was slightly annoyed because she didn't understand what she read. And
It,
now I've actually made it my core focus of research.
oh, now for our audience, when you say IP, you mean intellectual property rights?
Yes,
Did I get it
everything
right?
relating to copyrights,
Mm.
patents, trademarks, everything like that. And there's, of course, a very big component on which you can register, for instance, your copyright on this
Mhm.
wonderful piece of art that you've created on a blockchain. So you can say, hey, this is my painting and not yours. And I've made it before you started to claim it. So you can actually make sure that you can exercise your rights. You can do that via blockchain, which is pretty
Mhm.
cool.
Now, um, con- thinking about blockchain, any specific areas of concentration that you are currently working on right now?
Well, I've actually quite recently finished an article on the regulation of stablecoins in the EU and in the USA. Of course, stablecoins is kind of a hot topic, especially since the collapse of Terra and Luna.
Hmm.
But I've mostly focused on the regulation of something as big as Tether. And I've actually tried to analyze the proposals that have come out of the EU and out of the US
Hmm.
to regulate the crypto sphere and more specifically stablecoins. Because, of course, regulators got sort of scared when Facebook announced Libra a few years ago.
I know.
They were suddenly jolted into thinking, oh God, we need to do something with this.
Hmm.
And they really actively try to regulate all the crypto assets we have around us at this day and age. And I assessed whether these proposals that they've put forward after being so scared of something like Libra coming up, if that actually sort of struck the right balance between the protecting the consumer or the investor who
Hmm.
uses or makes use of crypto and actually still allows innovation in the sphere. Because if you would like amp on the consumer protection side way too much, you would sort of decrease all the innovation that can go on and vice versa. So
Hmm.
there needs to be a proper balance between the two. And I've recently wrote an article and published it in Cambridge Law Review on this topic. And spoiler, both sides, both countries across the pond actually have not really managed to strike a proper balance between innovation and consumer protection. And I've actually jilted too much to the side of consumer protection,
Hmm.
which is dangerous to innovation in this sphere. And it's such a wonderful sphere.
I don't know if you'll answer this. This is out of the list of our questions, but let me give me your thoughts. I don't know. It's okay if you're gonna answer it or not. Your thoughts on XRP and SEC here in the States.
My gosh, I'm not really sure if I'm the most qualified person to answer something
Okay.
somebody on the states as I am an EU based legal professional, and I would never ever want to jilt all the US professionals that are probably in the audience right now. So I think that question would be better suited to sort of my counterpart situated in the US.
Okay, fair enough. Sorry about that. It just to it's just right there, and I cannot stop. But you know how it is with Terra Luna. It has been a disaster for the stable coins, and with them. I see the founder being threatened in his house and all of those things. So I see where you are at in terms of consumer protection. And regarding the project that you're currently working on, you already worked with, maybe you could share to us where the article is, where can they read it, or which website or
Of
which
course,
magazine?
of course, you can find it online by a Cambridge Law Review. It's in volume 7. So it's quite easily accessible. Just Google Cambridge Law Review, and it's a purely open access and online journal.
Okay.
So everybody interested in reading something about the regulation of
Mm.
stablecoins is welcome to do so. And you can find my article there. There are so many wonderful articles already on the topic, also by a professor called Zetsche. I think he's from Frankfurt. I'm not
Hmm.
exactly 100% sure where he is from, but he is German. His article is also brilliant on the regulation in Europe. So that would also be a big recommendation from my side, including also the work of Marco Dell'Erba, also a wonderful professor in this field.
Okay, I'll be asking all of those links later on
Perfect.
so that I could add up on the description box so that, if our audience will be looking for it, it'll be easier for them. By the way, we have here, she is my co host, but she's one of the best moms other than being one of the women in blockchain taking care of her kids graduation day or recognition day. So that's Dr. Tammy Francis saying, giving a shout out to both of us, especially to you, Desiree, our guest for today. So that's Dr. Tammy Francis here. Now, um this is another question that uh I don't know how I would approach this, but you have those articles published. This would be, is it already it's already out there, am I correct?
Yes, since
It's
last month, actually.
since last month. Now, going back to your profession and blockchain, can you be more specific for our audience in terms of uh, what would be the problems or world problems that blockchain maybe can solve in terms of your practice? Any use cases that you can cite on?
In terms of my practice, do you mean specifically my research field, or do you mean my
Practice
day job,
as
so to speak?
Yeah, practice as a lawyer.
Well, actually, it can my practice as legal counsel is actually very broad since it is focused on everything ICT related. And there is a lot of work done in field of blockchain, of course, in ICT land, so to speak. And also, if you would connect that to a legal field, of course, the praxis of the notary could be sped up and could
Mm,
be more cost efficient if you would implement a blockchain in this system. Because of course, a notary has it as its core function to make sure that the house you're actually buying from this one person was actually owned by this one person who
mhm,
has all the rights to be and is able to transfer all of them to you as a new land and house owner. If you would have a registry on a blockchain that shows who owns what house and what land, um, then you could much more easily and much quicker also transfer deeds of ownership, know
mhm,
who owns what. So it's much easier also from a government point of view to keep track of things, also for landowners to keep track of things, and also just to make sure that you are actually buying a house from the right person, which is generally a notary's job to make sure that that actually happens. But it costs a small fortune, of course, to hire a notary, and
right.
this just speeds it up, makes it cheaper, makes it faster, and is generally just, I think, a very good example of how the legal field could also and can actually benefit from blockchain. Um, Another point, of course, is art. Art, like I think I mentioned it before, of course, but registration of IP rights
Mhm,
is in my field of practice, and also my focus on IP is actually kind of core, because you need to make sure that you register as an IP owner, the rights to, for instance, your painting or your book or your manuscript or whatever you wrote, and to make sure that you can still claim it as yours. I know there are some differences in how copyrights are, for instance, claimed or registered when comparing the EU to the US.
Mm-hmm.
The EU does not have an active registration of copyright, which sometimes makes it incredibly difficult to figure
Oh,
out who came up with what.
right.
But if you would register this stuff on a blockchain, it would be much easier, and there would be way less legal battles to fight over who owns what and who painted what, or for instance, who made this one tune that a video company would use, or this introductory tune to, for instance,
Mm-hmm.
a wonderful show like today. Um, you could register stuff like that on a blockchain, and that's
Mm-hmm.
just brilliant. Or you could just collaborate on art on a blockchain, and that also would facilitate working together, but it would also facilitate basically my job,
Mm-hmm.
and give also the legal professionals more insight into who owns what, which is of course what legal professionals really live for: who owns what, where does what go, and what contracts did who sign, basically.
Right, right, right. I'm so interested with the notarization because that's the other challenge, having things notarized, and you have to look for a notary public who's going to do all those stuff, and then the authentication despite of the notarization. And uh, it's kind of, there's a lot of bureaucracy on the papers. So once
Yes.
it's done on blockchain, I mean, that solves a lot of problems. So how does, and in addition to that, you were talking about art, and with the NFTs growing right now, that's one thing where really blockchain could really help. Um, Going back to my train of thought right now is like I got several questions that I don't know which one to start with. Anyway, let me go back to my list, which is, what is your advice for people who wants to become a blockchain professional advocate like you?
First of all, get your courses and get your certifications. That's what I would recommend, because learning from blockchain professionals in the field is such an amazing opportunity to really connect also to the wonderful blockchain sphere, to the professionals around you, and also really just gain insight into concepts that you have Googled, like I did 100 times, but still somehow don't really see the depth of or the complexity of, but also gives you a chance to really consider the application of blockchain in ways in which you cannot comprehend by just Googling stuff like I
Mm,
did. So get your certification, take your courses, but really mostly connect with all the wonderful professionals around you. It's been such a thrill to actually see all these wonderful professionals also reach out to me via LinkedIn and say, hey, you're also part of this funny little community that we're building that's growing exponentially every single day with new additions to our blockchain sphere. Let's keep in touch. And that's just amazing because you can bounce ideas off of one another. You can enter into collaborations you've never thought of before, or you can even surprise yourself
mm.
by actually coming up with something wonderful in the blockchain sphere and making it, for instance, like I did, your main field of research.
Where do you see blockchain in your practice 5 years from now?
My gosh, I think the legal field has it's a dusty and slightly traditional field, generally speaking.
Mm,
Usually, legal professionals are kind of scared about innovation. So perhaps this is going to make you laugh, but I think in the beginning of this year, Dutch courts actually stopped using the fax machines and just switched over to the internet completely, which was a shocker to me that they still used fax
oh,
machines that
really?
often. Yes, I'm not kidding. And the Dutch
Wow.
courts are actually very excellent. They're extremely good. There's no point against them. But the
Mhm.
fact that you could still send in stuff via fax to me was just
Amazing.
bizarre.
Amazing.
It's amazing. So I honestly hope that in 5 years' time, the legal professionals have sort of woken up and started to think, hey, we need to educate ourselves about blockchain, and we need to educate ourselves on the 100 wonderful innovations that have come out of blockchain and have developed onto the blockchain sphere by that time. So that's honestly where I hope the legal professionals are going to be by that time, which is sort of a sad analysis, but I think if I go back to my facts example, I think it's slightly accurate, unfortunately.
I remember I had a case back in the Philippines, and they were sending me the subpoena, and I got my lawyer there and everything, and they want everything to be signed, uh, like signed true copy. It's original. I said, "Hey, is there a way that you can do a Docusign? Because that's how we make it like really fast." But the courts would not accept DocuSign. Rather, they have to mail everything here in the States, have it signed, and then mail back, which takes a lot of time. So that's the legal system there. And I thought that's only on third world countries, but amazing fax machine.
Gosh, no. Gosh, no. I mean, there's still some people who are kind of iffy about the use of DocuSign in NL. Unfortunately, a lot of people are getting onto that bandwagon. They actually really are using DocuSign a lot more. Courts are
Mhm,
accepting e-signatures much more. We have actually we have a specific sector of one of our courts that deals
mhm,
with matters of patents, but also ICT related questions. And our judges are actually educating themselves a lot on these matters. But still, you see that the legal system is an
mhm,
old timesy system. And it takes a while to really rise in the ranks, become a judge, for instance.
mhm,
And generally, it's the people who are really who really have their feet right in the middle of innovation that are able to actually apply it to their daily practice and their day-to-day business. And generally, you see sometimes that when people grow more comfortable in a specific role, that they are not
mhm.
as willing to take up something completely new or completely scary, sometimes even. So
Yeah,
I think the human side of it also plays a big part.
I I agree. We have old timers, 60 years old, who are even afraid to touch iPad or use the mobile phone. Now, last question, maybe second to the last. You already answered this, but I would rather hear you expound more on on this question. Is having a formal training and certification on blockchain important? And what are your thoughts on that? I know you already talked about it. Make you maybe you could expound more on your thoughts on really having a certification for blockchain.
Of course, I think it would actually be a wonderful and excellent starting point for everybody's career to have one type of blockchain certification that you can get. Basically, just like one can have a bachelor's of art and obtain it in the Netherlands, and it would still be a bachelor of art when you would consider it in the US. I think it would be good to have one system of certification on blockchain in the entire world at some point, because that would show everybody that you know what you're talking about and that you have really gone through the trouble to and the time actually to allow yourself to really be swallowed up by that space and really allow your thought process to really access the wonderful world of blockchain and actually really gain knowledge on the concept. Because otherwise, basically, everybody could say, I'm a blockchain expert. I know what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
can do a job related to blockchain. I could be a programmer on blockchain, or I could become a legal professional who is focused on blockchain. And I think one certification for everybody, not a one size fits all, but one specific line of certifications with specializations in there relating to your field of practice or related to your focus could actually be incredibly beneficial to make sure that every professional is actually able to do a proper job and is able to really put all those wonderful concepts into practice.
Thank you so much, Desiree. This is a very fruitful conversation. I learned a lot. And maybe your final thoughts, or for millennials, they would say, "Oh, you want to give a shout out to whoever."
I
I'll give the full frame to you. Invite them to your article or where you write. So I'll give the whole frame. Go ahead.
Well, Vince, I mostly want to thank you for hosting this wonderful show, and I of course want to shout out to Amando, who organizes a lot of stuff also behind the scenes for Althash University. He is a rock star, really. So I think that's my shout out, and I also would like to throw a quick wave to Dr. Francis, who's also been wonderful.
Desiree, legal counsel from Netherlands. Thank you so much. God bless you. Take care. This is Vince
Thank
from
you.
the block signing out. See you next week. Bye bye.
Bye.
This blockchain continuing education program is brought to you by our major sponsors: HTML Coin, Utility Coin Beyond the Hype; Althash University, your online school in the fourth industrial revolution; Libra Codes, take control on your NFT creation; and Credence Hub, verified credentials, anytime, anywhere. We also would like to thank our partners: